Good evening and Happy New Year's to everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Rankin Mon Valley Pittsburgh section of the National Council of Negro Women. My name is Patricia Blewett, and I am the section's corresponding secretary. And joining me is Alice Paylor Days, and Alice is a member of our political committee. We thank all of you who have participated in our previous program, and we hope that you will join us again today by calling in any questions and comments. The number to call would be 412-853-8206, and that number will be running at the bottom of the screen. Our guest today is Dr. Cheryl R. Maccabee, Esquire. Dr. Maccabee is the president of our Rankin Mon Valley Pittsburgh section of the National Council of Negro Women. She's a longtime Pittsburgh attorney and an entrepreneur. The program today will satisfy several of our national mandates, civic engagement, and public policy. The program will also satisfy the initiative that naturally flows from the national mandates, such as STEAM, which stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, Art, and Math, STEAM education for African American women, economic empowerment, and entrepreneurship. Alice.
Yes, and before we begin the show, we would like to introduce our special guest by reading her bio. Dr. Maccabee is the first African American female chemical engineer to graduate from Carnegie Mellon University. Dr. Maccabee was very interested in STEAM, education for African American women. She received her law degree from Duquesne University and also earned an educational doctorate in social justice education from the University of Pittsburgh. Dr. Maccabee has been an entrepreneur for almost 40 years while living in the city of Pittsburgh, and for over 27 years while working for Gulf Oil, Dominion National Gas Transmission, and EQT Corporation. For the past few years, Dr. Maccabee operated the federal school program at Schumann Juvenile Detention Center. She was extremely interested in helping to get Schumann Center back in Allegheny County. She was also concerned with safety in Allegheny County schools. The doctoral research by Dr. Maccabee proved that an incident like what happened in Uvalde, Texas, could happen in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Allegheny County. Dr. Maccabee conducted further research while teaching students at the Hines School at Carnegie Mellon University on how to do school safety research and found even more alarming results. Welcome, Dr. Maccabee, and thank you for appearing on our program.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Oh, you are so welcome.
Yes.
Well, one of our first questions, Dr. Maccabee, is promoting civic engagement and public policies are two of the NCNW's national mandates. What do these two mandates mean to you?
Well, civic engagement means to me getting NCNW involved in collective actions with others, or among our membership. And we are designated to identify and address public issues of public concern and promoting a better quality of life for our community. Those are kind of the things that I want to focus on. Since September, I took office. We have had a meeting here in Pittsburgh with the State Executive Committee of NCNW, kind of a get to know each other meeting. We sworn a new collegiate Council of Young Women at Robert Morris University. We met with a group at the University of Pittsburgh and hope to get that collegiate council up and running. I have recruited Dr. Rose Smiley to join our ranks. She's a professor at California University of Pennsylvania, and which is now called Penn West. And she will take over the collegiate part of our local council. Also, those RMU students are very impressive young ladies, and I have added them to our membership list, and they'll be now coming to our monthly meetings. And so we really want to take them and mold them and help them in all their endeavors. We have formed an alliance with the League of Women Voters here in Pittsburgh. And I would say this too, the Pittsburgh League of Women Voters is the largest League of Women Voters group in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And our enthusiasm in getting affiliation with them has spread. So now that affiliation is going into the state, and even the national president of the League of Women Voters has called and wants things to get moving in the national level. And I would say this too, because most of us our age remember when we couldn't join the League of Women Voters. They blocked African American women from joining the League of Women Voters. And about 2 years ago, I believe it was their national president, put a letter of apology in the Washington Post and apologized for barring African American women from. So we are trying to form because together we can be so much stronger than separately. And also, I'd like you to remember this: save the date of February 27th because we will have a joint panel on racial equity with the local League of Women Voters from 6 to 7:30, and I will get you, Pat, all the details so you can get a flyer out. But that's going to be
Okay.
February 27th, and the National Council of Negro Women and the League of Women Voters will be jointly dealing with racial issues.
Uh, well, I
And
think you.
let me say this. All these
Mhm.
things I have just outlined as part of the national NCNW mandates, they are part of our mission to lead, advocate for, and empower women of African descent, their families, and communities. So
Hmm.
that's our mandate.
And
Okay.
you're really going to be busy this year, aren't you?
Very busy.
And I
So
think we are also, Alice.
yes, yes, yes. And so you've already answered my question.
Yeah, the
So
all-encompassing you.
yes, yes, and those are very, very, very good ideas and good things to pursue. And I hope we can all help you and do what we can and be successful in accomplishing your mission for
Mhm.
RCN for the NCNW. Um, the one question I have, can you share with us? No, I don't want to talk about that now.
Okay. Well, let me go to the next
Yeah,
question
go to your next
about
question,
Dorothy
Pat.
Heights. Now, for
Mm-hmm.
those who did not know, Dorothy Heights grew up in the city of Rankin and became the National Council of Negro Women president for over 40 years. So the question is there a special Dorothy Heights story that prompted you to join the NCNW?
Well, there are a couple of us who remember our mothers who were members of the former Pittsburgh chapter of the NCNW. So,
Mm-hmm.
when you grow up and your mother's going to, it's like if you grow up and your mother's going to Eastern Star or something like that, or your mother's going to NCNW, you grow up with that, you hear that. And I think that one of the issues that we're having right now is that a lot of young people have not grown up with that. So we're having to tell them
Mm-hmm.
who explain to them who NCNW is. And, even one of my girlfriends in my town, she actually moved to DC and worked for decades for Dorothy Height, and she would come
Oh,
back home,
really?
and she sure did. Debbie McFadden,
Good.
Debbie
Oh,
McFadden, yeah,
okay. Yeah.
and she would tell us about what was going on with Dorothy Height. But but I don't want to leave that without mentioning our founder, Mary McLeod Bethune,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that
Mm-hmm.
she really makes our organization stand out in that she was a civil rights pioneer, and she is the first Black American, male or female, to represent us in the Congress in the
Mm-hmm.
statutory hall. Okay, she was an activist
Okay.
that laid the foundation for the modern civil rights movement, and that's very
Mm-hmm.
important.
Yes, it
Mm-hmm.
is.
Mm-hmm. And can you share a little bit with us about what the Good Health Wins initiative is all about that
Well,
you're
I think
working
that we
on?
were very blessed that we received the national received a um, they received a I'm lost for the words, but they received a money from the Center for Disease Control
Mm-hmm.
to go out into our communities and vaccinate people in our community because we are so
Oh, okay.
underrepresented when it comes to vaccinations.
Right.
And that's why, it is so important. We've been pushing that, trying to get into communities and push vaccinations. Now, just recently, the Center for Disease Control has told us that we now need to push all vaccinations because now the COVID is kind of becoming one of many things. We need to
Mm-hmm.
push all
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
vaccinations because we need to make sure that our community is uh, is vaccinated and is healthy because we during the COVID situation lost so many good people.
Yes,
And
we did.
Yeah.
whenever I
Yeah.
whenever I think about, I think the last time I was on this program, Chanel Simmons
Mm.
was involved, and
Mm-hmm.
I was just shocked to find out that she passed due to COVID. So
Yeah.
we've lost so many. I don't know anybody that hasn't lost somebody,
Yes.
and particularly our community was hit so hard. So it's very important for us as African American women to go out and get our people vaccinated and get the good information out because even where I was raised, the African American church there, the minister doesn't believe in vaccinations, and
Mm-hmm.
he has led a lot of the congregation not to believe in vaccinations, and we really have to go and sit down with people and try to stress how important being vaccinated is.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And why do you think that we're so um, against getting the vaccinations? A lot of us, a lot of
Well, I
African
think it goes back
Americans.
to the Tuskegee experiment. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
when they experimented,
Oh,
you know,
yes,
a
yes,
lot of people.
yes.
Now, I wasn't in Allegheny County. I grew up in Westmoreland County, but a lot of people tell me there was a time when a black person couldn't get into Shady Side Hospital. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so we have had so many things that through the years that now we are very cautious and we're very skeptical of things, and this unfortunately is one where the skepticism doesn't need to be. And when people talk about the Tuskegee experiment, and that's of course where they took African American men who had syphilis and did not treat them, they allowed
Mm-hmm.
them to go and the syphilis to go on till they became blind and did all these things. And can you
Mm-hmm.
imagine not treating anybody for syphilis, okay,
Yeah,
and just allowing it to go on, and then you study them like they're some kind of lab rats?
yeah.
Well, this went on, and you realize that it didn't end until the 1970s. When my parents talked about the Tuskegee experiment, I thought it was something that ended in the 50s. But what I
Mm-hmm.
learned when I went to Pitt, we had to go through what they call the Institutional Review Board. So when you do
Mm-hmm.
any kind of doctoral research, and especially if you're going to do it with human beings, you have to go and learn all these things. And that's where I learned. I'm like, oh my goodness, the Tuskegee experiment was going on in the 70s? Yes,
Really?
Mm-hmm.
yes, it was. Yes, it was. And you realize the specula, which every woman
Ah.
uses when they get their pap smear, the
Mm-hmm.
specula was by this monster doctor. And matter of fact, they're trying to get his name off of some institution has his name on it, where he was taking large objects and sticking them up in women till he figured out how to get the specula together to do pap smears. But can you imagine? He was just sticking them up in women with no painkiller.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
It,
wow.
Doctor,
Mm-mm.
we have someone on the line. Her name is Donna, and she's from Homewood, and she'd like to ask a question or make a comment. Hello, Donna. Are you with us?
Hi, ladies. How are you?
Wonderful. How are you today? And Happy New Year's to you.
Thank you. Same to you. Okay, so I understand your section was founded in honor of the late great Dr. Dorothy I. Height, which is why the
Mm-hmm.
section has Rankin in its name, since Dr. Height spent her childhood in Rankin, Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to commend the section on keeping her legacy alive and honoring her in that way. But I did have a question. Okay, since your organization is collaborating with the League of Women Voters, I hear a lot of young people talk about not voting because they don't think it makes a difference. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
just wondering if there's anything you can say to the maybe some of the young people listening and some of the other people who think voting doesn't make a difference. Can you give them some insight on the importance of voting?
well, let me say this. Um, what people don't realize, let's just take the governor's office. The person that's in the governor's office, the Secretary of Labor is under the governor, and the Secretary of Labor controls unemployment, workers' comp, and so on and so forth. So when you get laid off from a job and you go to get unemployment, and you have some conservative judge there, okay, remember that if you didn't vote and you didn't make a difference so that you had a governor that would appoint a
Mm-hmm.
liberal judge, and you're denied unemployment, remember, it's because you didn't vote. Okay, so voting, you have to realize that voting is trickle down. Okay, and people don't realize how close voting really affects their situation. If you get hurt on
Mm-hmm.
the job and you're denied workers' comp because you got a conservative judge, well, I hope you voted, because if you didn't vote, you kind of contributed to your situation. So you voting affects a lot of, and this is something that really we haven't been very good at. We haven't been very good at telling young people how local politics affects them and that local voting affects them. We
Mhm.
always say, "Oh, vote for the president, vote for the governor, whatever." But you know what?
Mm-hmm.
Those people do so much that controls you down below. You know
Mhm.
that you really voting is very important. I don't know how else to express it.
It is very important. Um, can you tell us the difference? Can you tell us how the different NCNW sections interact with one another on a monthly or an annual basis?
Well, we have five NCNW sections in Pennsylvania. Okay, we are the only section here in Western Pennsylvania, though. That's really interesting. We are the only section in Western Pennsylvania. There's not a section from between Harrisburg and us. That we're the only ones. So the other three are in the eastern part of Pennsylvania, and then one in central Pennsylvania. And our state president, who came into office when I did back in September, um, she started something where she meets with all five local council presidents across the state once per month. So we have the president's
Mm-hmm.
meeting, and it's really very informative. You're allowed to share things, share thoughts, and it's just really I like the meetings. And then she also has our first vice president. Um, presidents, they're also meeting once a month. And our new first vice president is over our programming. So our first vice president, and I should also say about this about our new first vice president, because when I came in, I was really the only person that was elected. There were a couple many places that were vacant. So our new
Mhm.
first vice president actually was a black woman who was the state League of Women Voters president. That's how she got.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
she was
Mm-hmm.
okay.
the state League of, and she came back here because of some health issues and or some personal issues, but uh, family type things. But anyway, she came back here, and now she's with the uh, she's the diversity and inclusion officer here at the local Pittsburgh branch.
Oh, good,
Okay, but I think
good.
many of us did not realize that the state president for League of Women Voters was an African American female.
I
I
didn't
did
know
not.
that
I
either.
did not know that either.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's
Yeah.
good.
Now our
Well, I.
second vice president. There is a second vice president's meeting, and the second vice president, I have to remember, I have to mention that too. She has, she was from the previous administration, and she is just wonderful. And she has our fiscal year started in October, and she has so far with all of us joining together, bringing in new people. We have 55 members now, and we have 13 new life members.
Oh,
Okay.
excellent,
And
excellent.
guess what? Right as of the last meeting they had, I think in December or November, we have more members than Philadelphia has. Okay,
Oh,
so
wonderful.
and the last a new person we brought on, um, our third vice president, which all the third vice presidents meet once a month, and she will be taking over our collegiate area, and she is Dr. Rose Smiley from West Cal State. Now it's Penn West, and Signora Watson, who many of you probably remember, maybe
Yeah.
which she, her husband was the former superintendent of Wilkinsburg school system,
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
and she also was the counselor at Keller Alderdice, and the first vice president is Dr. Reverend Terry Griffin. So these ladies,
Good, excellent.
we're all working together. We're bringing on new people, and we're trying to fill all these slots. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and I'd like to congratulate you on being selected to serve on the governor's transition team for energy and environment. And what did that selection mean to you? And exactly what will that committee or that selection committee be doing?
well, there are a lot of things that we can't discuss, obviously, but I will say this: that I feel that when I'm put on a committee like that, I have to represent my underrepresented community, and I have to tell my thoughts on our community and what I have shared, which is my information that I have shared with them. Um, years ago, in 2008, as a matter of fact, Sustainable Pittsburgh, which, by the way, I met the executive director of Sustainable Pittsburgh, who was an African American female, and I sent her an application, emailed it to her today, because she
Oh,
said, "How
great.
come I don't know you?" And I'm like, "How come I don't know you?" But she is the executive director of Sustainable Pittsburgh,
Oh,
and
okay.
yeah, Sustainable, and she's been there 4 years. Young lady they brought in
Mm,
here from the other part of the state. But I
okay.
emailed her because this is an old article that I carried around. As a matter of fact, there was a time when people moved to Pittsburgh, I would share this article with them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's called Inclusion in Workforce. Um, and let me just go down through some of this because this is important. I say this. On December 11, 2008, the annual Pittsburgh Regional Economic Summit was convened by Sustainable Pittsburgh. At that meeting, a paper was presented written by experts from the University of California, Davis, the University of Pittsburgh, and PolicyLink. The paper, entitled Inclusion in the Workforce, Positioning the Pittsburgh Region to Prosper and Compete, gave these findings. On page 4, they wrote, African American jobless, underemployed, and working poor cost the Pittsburgh region $372 million in 2008. The unemployment rate for blacks, on page 5, they wrote, in the Pittsburgh region during 2001 to 2005, the unemployment rate for blacks aged 16 to 64 was 56%.
Oh,
The
my.
explanation of the chart on page 5 shows the data places Pittsburgh squarely among the most inequitable regions across the country, clearly
Mm,
untenable for a region of Pittsburgh's aspirations. The
mm,
study further went on to say on page 7 to 8 that to move toward a strong, equitable, and resilient economy, Pittsburgh needs to reduce its racial employment disparity. To achieve this, we recommend action in 3 interrelated areas. 1, fostering growth in living wage jobs in sections accessible to workers with a wide range of backgrounds. 2, helping African Americans overcome systemic barriers to employment. And 3, changing policies and composition of employers to generate and increase demand for a racially diverse workforce. The paper concludes on page 10 by stating, addressing Pittsburgh's black unemployment crisis is an urgent necessity. Now, I shared that with them
mm-hmm.
because I could remember in 2009, I was a member of the Allegheny Conference. I had joined the Allegheny Conference, and they were going to take this on. And I think they took it on, and that lasted about a month, and it was dropped. Okay, because this is a lot.
It
Okay,
is. It is.
and
Yes.
you know this area is very closed. And as you can see from their paper, unless they start opening it up to other folks to get jobs and things, we're never going to get to be where we want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
You're
Well,
right.
no, so what's the purpose of this transition team?
I believe it's to come in. What I'm thinking, I don't know. I think it's to, uh, you know, come in and, um, you know, help in the transition. And there's not much more I can really say about that because
Okay.
we're kind of
Mm-hmm.
uh, precluded from talking too much about it. I can
Right.
share what
Right.
I gave them because everybody's got
Okay.
that. Matter of fact, believe
Mm-hmm.
it or not, that article that I shared with them, that was given out to G20 when President Obama came here. I was
Mm-hmm.
surprised.
Really?
It surely was. I opened up something and I looked and I thought, wow, there's that Sustainable Pittsburgh thing. And it was in this little booklet that was handed out at the G20.
Mm.
Mm, mm, mm.
Well, I find this very impressive. You were the first African American female chemical engineer to graduate from Carnegie Mellon University. First of all, how did you become interested in chemical engineering, and how did that impact your decision as a role model?
Well, I became interested because one of my sister and I, um, my older sister, there's a bit of an age span between us. So one of her girlfriends was actually working at Carnegie Mellon and was telling her about all the things they had for young folks down there. And I had also been in the U.S. Steel Science Honors Institute, and every Saturday I would come to United States Steel down in Homestead, that building
Mm-hmm.
down there,
Oh,
and
okay.
they would have programs there for students from various areas, and we would go and so let's say this. I had the background for doing this, and she felt that I should do this because this was what people were doing. And since I had taken all those courses and so forth, That's the way I went. And I was going to go to Pitt because at the time I was applying, she had transferred to Pitt, but I came back to CMU because CMU actually offered more scholarship money, which I
Okay.
didn't realize later on though that was not true. CMU they kind of went out and recruited people, but then when the scholarship money was supposed to be there, it wasn't really there. But you were there, you were stuck. As a matter of fact, I can
Right.
remember one of my dear friends came here from Houston, Texas. They went out of Texas and got her, and they had actually Carnegie Mellon had more African American engineering candidates than the University of Pittsburgh did. Okay,
Really?
we graduated more than Pitt did, and um, they had gone down to Houston and brought her in because they told her there was a geology department at Carnegie Mellon. When Carnegie Mellon had one geology course. Okay, so she left the
Mm.
next year and went back to Rice University and graduated from Rice. But
Mm.
they recruited people from all over. And when you talk about how does that affect us being mentors, there were some students behind me, and I think they're maybe 2 years behind me, and I gave them tips on how to get through certain courses.
Mm-hmm.
And I never thought of myself as a mentor, but when I went back to the reunion, they were referring to me as their mentor. It shocked me because you never think that, what you're doing is mentoring, because you're just telling people, don't take this, take that, and this cycle and all that kind of thing, and you never really think of that as mentoring.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. Well, and I also understand that you have been an entrepreneur for years. So, what lessons have you learned as an entrepreneur in the city of Pittsburgh as an
Well,
African American female?
as being an African American woman in the city of Pittsburgh as an entrepreneur is awful. Okay.
Oh.
Um, yeah, for instance, I bought my building in 1996, and the city of Pittsburgh has kept me from opening uh, that building for what, almost 30 years. And all I do is
Really?
pay tax. Yes, all I do is pay taxes. And right now though, I'm kind of zeroing in on they're allowing me to get permits and things. And let me give you an example. In 2016, I applied for a permit, and
Mhm.
they said, "Oh, you can't get a permit till we change your." I'm sorry, 2012. We can't get a permit till we change your address. Well, it took them 4 years until 2000 to change my address
Oh
again.
my
So they were
goodness.
making me apply for the permit. I know they would not allow me. And then by 2016, of course, every year they hold you up, the regulations get more stringent. Okay, so then you got to go back and do all these other things. So I came back in 2019
Mm.
and I applied, and I had to do all this extra stuff because there are new regulations and new this and new that. And when I applied in 2019, um, things are going along. They came back again, which the address committee. Most people don't even know there is an address committee in the city of Pittsburgh, but I've been approached by them twice. The address committee came to me and said, "Oh, wait a minute, we don't like your address we gave you before in 2016. We're changing it again." So I have this was
Oh,
the third address that I've
sure.
had. Yeah. And so now, we have this one stop Pittsburgh. And this is very important. We have something called the one stop Pittsburgh portal, which the city,
Mhm.
oh, they just touted how wonderful it is. When you did permit, just go on the one stop Pittsburgh portal, except the one stop Pittsburgh portal doesn't work. And it particularly doesn't work when you have three addresses, because when you go to put the address in, it crashes like you're doing something fraudulent.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh my
yeah.
goodness.
And then what the people at the city are doing. Matter of fact, we are paying our taxes, but you realize that permits, licensing, inspections has never come back to their offices. So they're working from home. So in 2019, my electrician would submit for a permit for I had four buildings. Every building was given a new address in 2020. So when they submitted for the
Mm.
in 2019 for the permit, instead of putting it under the new building address, they put it on the wrong building address, and then they tried to find me because they said I didn't apply for a permit. And I couldn't
Oh
figure out
my.
what was going on because I couldn't even get into the system. It was crashing. But one thing, I got a wonderful African American contractor, and he said, "Cheryl, you need to go and get a new architect. The architect you have, he's fine, but he's too old. You need to get one of these young architects who's used over in Lawrenceville, who's used to doing all these development situations." So I had to go, and I sent a nice little letter to my architect, and I said, we've been together for many years, but I'm going to have to go and get a new architect because permits and licensing, they were like They had him. He didn't know what was going on. Okay, but he didn't realize you have an African American client, and this is where it goes. Okay, but I needed somebody who was slick enough, as slick as they were. Okay, so time went on. So my new architect
What's going on?
I think you froze up for a moment.
Mm.
Let's let our technicians handle that one for us.
Yeah, yeah.
she has helped. Okay, so I didn't even realize they were putting it under the wrong building address until she took a screenshot, which I don't even know how she took a screenshot and sent it to me, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is the wrong address because she
Mm.
didn't really understand the addresses. When I looked at it, I knew exactly what the problem was, and you realize too. Now here we got the one-stop Pittsburgh courthouse. They take you to the magistrate. I've been to the magistrate probably 20 times. Seriously, 20 times.
Really?
The first time, yes, the first time they took me to the magistrate because they got me for the electrical permit, the um, plumbing, the my tenant. I did have a tenant who was coming in, and when they were coming in, they decided they wanted to put in a garage door. They got me for their garage door. They got me for all these things. Okay, so they hit me with five um, violations, and we had to go to the magistrate. So when we went to the magistrate, um, we didn't even realize, like I said, we didn't understand what was going on. But when she sent me that screenshot, I realized, oh, this is what's happening. These are the wrong addresses. So then when I went back to go and tell them this, they had gone in and changed it all to the correct addresses. So if she had to send me that screenshot, I'd have looked like I was crazy. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm.
what I sent them a nice little email and I said, manipulation of government documents. That's right around when everything I forget, was it Donald Trump or somebody about manipulation of government documents? I said, this is manipulation of government documents. Okay. I said, because what was going on 30 days ago or 15 days ago and what's going up there now is totally different. Do you know that within 2 hours, I had my building permit?
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Seriously.
can you tell us where your building is located?
And can you also
In
tell
the
us what kind of businesses are going to be in those
yeah,
buildings?
yeah. I had it within 2 hours. And uh, so, and I'll tell you, there are so many entrepreneurs, but people who, if you're not a big developer in the city and you're a little guy, it's just tough.
Mm-hmm.
So, where is your building located?
It's in the West End. Matter of fact, 2 nights ago, somebody came into my parking lot and they dumped a whole house full of garbage in my parking
Oh.
lot.
Oh, no.
Yeah, they dumped it. Matter of fact, one of the businesses down there called me and they said, you know what? Somebody dumped garbage. Then they called me next day and said they came back and dumped another load of house full
Oh.
of garbage. It's like somebody emptied
Oh.
out the garbage. This house is there. Okay, and so I was down night before last. I was down there and I had a paint stir. So I was poking through the garbage as I was looking for some documents, and didn't I find a child's um, medical records with social security
Mm.
numbers and addresses and whatever. So I had
Mm-hmm.
called the Pittsburgh police, and of course, the Pittsburgh police. I don't know where they're great, they're good, okay, but by the time they
So,
got there, I had everything all dug out and everything. And matter of fact, I said to the policeman, I said, okay, I have my little rubber gloves because I always carry rubber gloves in my car. I have my rubber gloves. I said,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
here's the evidence. I said, now they can trace this back. I said, if it was a landlord, whoever these people lived with, okay, they can trace back. So he said, I don't want to touch that. And so I said, well, give me an evidence bag. I'll put it in there. He said, I don't have an evidence bag. I'm thinking like, why?
So what type of business are
Wait a
you?
minute. Yeah,
What
what
type
kind
of
of,
business? What
I
type of
know.
business are you putting in the building?
Oh, I'm leasing. I'm leasing
Oh,
and,
okay.
and yeah,
Oh,
Okay.
I
and,
see. Okay.
and warehousing. And matter of fact, I'll say this too. I don't know how all those people that they got on TV that conned the government out of all that COVID money. I don't know how they did that because they scrutinize everybody I know so well. Nobody has
Mm-hmm.
gotten okay. And they
Really?
told me I couldn't get anything because I was a landlord. Okay. And um and the sad thing is, let's suppose you're like a little guy and you have a unit down in Homewood where three people are living in, and then they tell those people they don't have to pay the rent. but they can't give you any money because you're the landlord.
Oh,
You're
wow.
not going to lose your building. And then they want to,
Exactly.
then it's like you look bad because you're thinking, hey, these people aren't paying. Where's my money? And there is no
Right.
money for the landlord. There
And you
was no
still
money.
have to maintain the building.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Well, I also understand that you've operated a federal school safety program at Schumann Detention Center. Can you tell us a little bit about that work and the research you conducted there?
Well, I didn't. It wasn't a school safety program. I ran the federal Title I program for the after school program and the summer school program.
Oh,
And I think
okay.
I mentioned this on this program I think once before, but I, I'm very concerned, and I was concerned when Schumann shut down.
Hmm.
Her screen froze again.
Yeah.
Hmm. Please be patient with us. There's a little technical difficulty.
Okay, but nobody would listen.
It froze again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're losing you a
You,
little bit.
yeah, you froze up when you were trying to answer that question. So would you please
Oh,
be
okay.
able to go ahead?
Well, what I would like to do, and people have, I've spoken to people, and people have encouraged me to help get a group together to talk about an African American group, particularly together to talk about bringing Schumann Center back to uh, Allegheny County in this region.
Yes. Hmm.
Because right now, the only group that has applied is a majority Caucasian group out of Westmoreland County, almost over in the Indiana area, and that's not going to work
Mm.
because what was at Schumann at the time, there were almost 300 African American jobs there. There were you know uh, people there, those kids respected. And matter of fact, unfortunately, in a way, what's sad is when those kids would leave. Matter when I first started there, I was always shocked when I would hear kids leave and they would say things like, "Bye, mom. Bye, dad. Be back
Mm.
soon."
Uh,
And I think I've shared this with you because those children were institutionalized. And it took me a while because, I spent my time fighting to keep kids out of Schumann, but I never realized that some of these kids want to go to Schumann. Okay.
Really?
When
mm.
you think about it, uh, you don't have, you know, mom's boyfriend climbing into bed with you. You don't have bullets flying by you. You don't
Oh,
have people
yeah.
trying to shoot you going to school. You don't have, I mean, think of the stress that some of these kids are under. You have
Hmm.
good meals, clean bed, people and um, the employees there, they their caution was getting too close to these kids. Okay.
Hmm.
Uh, and matter of fact, when a kid would get killed, you weren't allowed to go to their funeral. Okay.
Really?
Mm.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, I guess you would get emotionally attached to some of the
Yeah, and
kids.
when you have kids that have been in and out of this system, out of Schumann 17 times and 15 times,
Wow.
and they know you, you know them. Remember, you see them in the community, you know their mom, their dad, this one, that one. So when you talk about bringing in this crew out of Westmoreland County and coming in here, you're going to have kids violated. So as far as I'm concerned, this is my opinion. You're going to have kids that will be violated, and pretty soon they'll have so many charges on them because they're going to act up because um, there's a difference between how our cultural situation is so different. Okay, matter of
Hmm.
fact, the Caucasian teacher who ran the school with the AIU, he came to me and he said, Cheryl, how did you have that whole summer school program and you didn't violate one student the whole time? I told him point blank, I said, my teachers are black, your teachers are white.
Mm.
So
I didn't give words. That was it. Because culturally, um, there's a difference of approach
it is. It
for how
is.
people. And matter of fact,
It is.
when they would go to the AIU school, they would make them march in single line down like they were really in a prison. Okay, and they had
Mm.
lines and all this
Mm.
stuff. And matter of fact, I will say this new principal is very forward thinking, and he took a lot of that stuff out of there. And he said, I'm going to try to get some more African American people in this school. And so, he actually is the principal too at the jail, and he was a good guy. He's tried to implement a lot of things. Okay, but you have to have people, because these are children we're dealing with, and you can't
Right.
have just be cold and you know, well, you just can't. You have to have some nurturing and understanding of these kids because
Hmm.
you have to have that. You
So
know.
why did you said that you're trying to have them bring Schumann Center back to Allegheny County? Where did they move it to and why?
Oh, it has. I'm sorry, it hasn't been moved. It
Oh,
closed.
has
Now
it
it
closed?
closed.
Close.
Why did they close it?
Well, this is well. Let me say this. They closed it because they had said, and this is what I was told. And I've been looking for the report. The report's online, and I should have gotten the report when I was there because I was told the report was right online. And now I've been looking online, and I can't find it. But what I was told was in the report was that they said one child didn't get his medicine. So now a lot of this is because you got prime good land up there on the hill on Highland Drive. It's a great spot for
Mm-hmm.
development. Okay. And matter of
Mm-hmm.
fact, a lot of employees said they wouldn't be surprised if something didn't spring up there by one of our major institutions after we left. But at any rate, um, the the, there's so much that could be done with that situation. And okay, they had said that the child didn't get medicine. So the reason why the child didn't get medicine is because the African American nurse retired in April. So I even went to the Pittsburgh Black Nursing Association. I was trying to get them to send a nurse up there, and we couldn't find anybody to come up to apply for the nursing job. So you
Mm-hmm.
would think that this is a county-run facility, that Allegheny County has all those cane hospitals, and
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't you think that if you have all these nurses, that you would send one to Schumann since Schumann has nothing,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
okay? But no one ever sent any nurse up to Schumann. So the chiefs, who are very respected, okay, the chiefs would get the medicine out of a medicine dispenser and take it to the children, okay, to the
Oh
students,
wow.
okay, to the
Yeah.
residents. They said that was a violation because it didn't touch medical hands.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, if you've got a facility that can't find a nurse, it seems to me the people at the top should find a nurse for that facility. That's part of
Mm-hmm.
your responsibility. You don't come out and say, "Oh, I'm going to shut this place down because we're going to save $10 million every year. We save $10 million by closing it." And they didn't give the kids medicine. They didn't do this. They didn't do that. But look behind what they're saying,
Yeah.
okay? And the executive director, he was given a job like 9 months before down at the jail. He had his name on the executive director, the Caucasian executive director, had his name on the door down at the jail. Okay, and uh, there people are saying that he knew because he told certain people that they were going to shut it down. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people taken by surprise. Okay,
So where
so
do they send the children now?
oh, it's a mess. They're not. Some of them aren't being. Reason why we have a lot of kids, a lot of people that are out here shooting right and left is because let's say this. When we were shutting down, there was a police car from Scott Township. They never told the police. They never told the local municipalities there was no shooting. So they would drive up to the back door, getting ready to leave the kids off. We would say, "Oh no, you can't leave them here." They said, "Well, where do we go?" And we said, "Well, you can either go up to Newcastle or you can go over there to the other side of Westmoreland County." And a lot of them were saying, and I'm not just singling Scott Township, though. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just saying, they would say, "We're not driving that far to give these kids." You know what they do? They take them back, put an ankle bracelet on them, and let them go. And that's why
Exactly.
when you see
Wow.
Magistrate Riccardi saying that he's had one child that came through his place 7 times, I can believe it because I think even the closest place only has 16 beds.
Mm.
Schumann had
Wow.
several hundred beds.
Hmm.
And to me, why couldn't you just take part of that facility, even if you took one wing, okay, rehabbed it, and maybe had 30 beds or well, one wing would be more than 30 beds, but even if you took all those beds, there is no reason why they couldn't, especially with some of this infrastructure money coming in, that
Mm-hmm.
they
Mm-hmm.
couldn't go and petition that facility off and open that facility back up again. But it was
Mm-hmm.
very sad because, I worked for the Pittsburgh Mount Olive Intermediate Unit. See, everything is so decentralized, people don't even understand how things work. The school, the main school, was run by the Allegheny Intermediate Unit in Homestead. The
Mm-hmm.
neglected and delinquent facility was run by the Pittsburgh Mount Olive Intermediate Unit. And they run all the neglected and delinquent facilities in this area. Okay, so and people are like, who's the Pittsburgh Mount Olive Intermediate Unit? I haven't heard of that before. but they run
I
all
never
the.
heard of it either.
I know, and they report
Mm-hmm.
to the superintendent of the Pittsburgh public schools. Okay, and but the
Mm,
consultant they hired is a Caucasian blind man who lives in Arizona.
Oh.
And yes, and he comes in here and he oversees all the neglected. He comes in twice a year, and he oversees all the neglected and at least when I was there, all the neglected and delinquent facilities. So I got word that I was supposed to give all of our Schumann um, things to this same, this place over in Westmoreland County. And I said, well, but the federal money that was given to Allegheny County, um, can we leave can this stuff leave the county? And shouldn't we give
Mm-hmm.
all the delinquent facilities a chance to have this? And I said, well, if you want it to go to that particular place, which unbelievably is the same place, well, no, I won't even say that. You know, they if you want this one particular place to get all that all of our equipment. We had tons of equipment. We had, drivers training things. We had things you can make T-shirts with. We had so much stuff. If you want them to get that, please send that in writing to me so that
Mm-hmm.
I have some documentation.
Mm-hmm.
It never came in writing. So what happened is everybody got a chance to share in Schumann's things
mm.
because I
So,
couldn't.
We're beginning to run out of time. So I did want to ask another question about the STEAM program that you're running for African
mhm,
American women. Can you give
mhm.
us a little bit of highlights on that?
Well, I'm not running a STEAM program, but are you talking about my research?
Is that what it is?
Mhm.
Yes, it's research
Okay.
on.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that we had discussed um, maybe a year ago or so that I had done some research, and matter of fact, my research is what showed that Pittsburgh public school system had no memorandum of understanding with local law enforcement, which is illegal. Okay, and some people have told me, oh, they have it now, but I said no, they don't have it now because I have sent a right to know request, and they still don't have it. Okay, and what that
Mm,
means is that when you saw down in Uvalde, Texas, where they came and this one didn't know who was supposed to go in first, and that one didn't know. Although there is clear information on who should go in first in an active shooter situation,
Right.
but if you have it nailed down, which Pennsylvania has a law that says you should have that in writing, the chief of police signs it, and
mhm.
uh, the principal and the superintendent sign that. If you have that, you should have that by law and writing. If you don't have it, it's illegal. Okay,
Mm,
and yeah, it's illegal. And matter of fact, let me just say this too: all these people sitting on the Pittsburgh Public School Board, if they had an active shooter come in there and shoot up that school, or if something happened like that, the liability. I don't think the directors and officers liability insurance is going to cover it because they don't have the legal document in place. And
wow.
so, yeah, and that's really, and so when you get on these school boards and get into these, all these things, you really have to know what's going on because you could really subject yourself to some serious liability. And what I discovered years ago, which at that time people didn't quite understand, but I think it's becoming very clear why you need this document.
Mhm.
Um, that they didn't have one, but they're not the only one. It also, if you have some that are insufficient, that are deficient, you have to send to the state and ask them, is this acceptable? Which some of the ones I found, the state would never have accepted it because it had no semblance of what the state wanted. The state actually puts out a document saying what they want,
But the
and
school district doesn't have a legal attorney to give them legal advice.
believe this, their law department is actually the same girl that sent me out a notice back in 2019 saying, the same attorney, I should say, that same attorney from the same Pittsburgh Public School System law firm that sent me out the document in 2019 that said, we don't have one. If you want to appeal to the attorney general, go ahead. But why would I appeal? This doesn't exist. It's the same person that in 2021, the same girl, same attorney, signed the same document saying, we don't have one. If you want to appeal to the attorney general, you can. So yes, they have a solicitor, but I don't know. I'm not sure. Matter of fact, I'm not as an attorney. I wouldn't even want to sign that because
Mm.
to me, there's some liability as an attorney that you're
Mm,
you're you're helping this. You should be you should be pushing this district to get this document in place to be legal.
mm, mm, mm.
Mm.
And matter of fact, people think, oh, well, somebody's going to come in. and they're going to shoot up Westinghouse. Nobody's going to go in and shoot up Westinghouse. If I was somebody who was going to do something, you would go to some of these very out, like, over in Stanton Heights, some of those places where they don't have
Mm-hmm.
any police. You would go to something like that if I was a crazy person and wanted to do something like that. So, it's not without the realm of possibility. And I would be very, very concerned if I was on a Pittsburgh public school board.
Mm.
Really? Hmm.
Doctor, uh, do you have a website or Facebook location we can share with everyone or anyone who would like to get further information from you?
No, I don't. No, I don't. I need
Okay.
to when I'm going to, I've studied now before I studied 12 school districts. Now I've studied all 43 school districts. And there's so many things that I found with our 43 school districts. And it's very complicated because Pennsylvania has 500 school districts, and believe it or not, 43 of them are in Allegheny County.
Mm.
43 of the
Hmm.
500 in Allegheny County. Okay, so I am still working on my book. Okay, and get a website so people can go and find your book and so forth. So I'm still doing that, and I'm going to stop gathering data and just sit down and finish writing this book. So no, I don't.
What 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 advice or suggestions would you give parents that have children in the school district in the city of Pittsburgh?
Or the surrounding area.
That yes,
As far as STEAM, you mean, or education and so forth?
yeah, education and STEAM and how to handle
Well,
problems that their children run into.
I would okay. Well, I would say first thing is please don't discourage your child from going into math and science. Many
Mhm.
parents will say, "Oh, I wasn't good in math, so you're probably not going to be good either." So the child just drops it, and the school doesn't support you. But let me just say this: if a mother said to her son, "Oh, I wasn't good in sports, so you're probably not going to be good in sports either," but what happens? The school system kicks in. They have after-school programs. They
Mm-hmm.
have football programs. They have all these things,
Right.
and by the time they're done, this kid is he's like a pro football player. But there's
Mhm.
nothing that encourages kids with math. So I would say, please don't discourage your child because your child could be very bright when it comes to math. It's just that no one has taken the time and the support system that they have for other things they don't have for math and science.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
okay, okay. And you
The
think that's done on purpose?
the-
Um, yeah, I think so. Because everybody loves to say, oh, they love to go to the games and watch their kid run up and down the field and if he scored a touchdown, great. But what gratification is there to the parents or to anybody else when a child is good in math? But
mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
and what I mean, if they are number one in the spelling bee, what gratification is there? But the gratification comes later on when child gets a really good
Mm-hmm.
job.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, when
Mhm.
the child
Exactly.
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 hey, when you don't have to pay for that child's education and the child gets a scholarship, that's the gratification. But we as an
Yeah.
African American community, we want things immediately. So it's
Mm-hmm.
really fast. You can see this child in football, but it's long range when you think about what's where they're going to be 5 years from now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the percentage of young people that actually make it into professional football and basketball is very low.
It
But
Very.
is.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay. Before we thank our guests for appearing on our program again, we'd like to say that the Good Health Women's Immunization Network, Good Health Wins, is our commitment to building an army of good health champions who understand the importance of immunization across the lifespan. We want to educate, advocate, and impact families and communities across the United States to end the pandemic, address health disparities, shine the light on the importance of good health. Through our network of trusted messengers and grassroots activities, our goal is to increase vaccination rates, help remove barriers, and increase access to vaccinations and good health. Alice, you want to thank?
Like to thank you so much, Dr. McAbee, for taking the time out of your. I know you have a busy schedule to inform our audience about the Lincoln and the Mon Valley National Council of Negro Women and to share your career accomplishments with us. We also thank our listeners and audience for tuning in, and remember our live program airs first Friday of every month. And I have one more question I'd like to hear your opinion on Do you feel that there's economic stability in owning your own business in Pittsburgh for African Americans?
No.
Mm,
Mm,
sad. Mm,
yeah,
sad.
that is sad.
Sad. That
Yes,
is sad.
yes.
And we'd like to thank you for all your insights, and we'd like to congratulate you for your appointment with the governor, um, and all of the things that you said about increasing the knowledge and the awareness in the Black community. Those are things that we need to hear over and over and over again until we all join together and start working toward a final, decision where everybody counts. So thank you so very much for being with us today.
Thank you.
And
I agree
And
so much.
and with all your accomplishments that you've had, I know you've ran into stumbling blocks. What was it that kept you pushing and kept you coming back? When doors were shut up on, what kept you coming back?
I think it was because of my parents. Um,
mm,
my mother was a OEO worker with the Office of Economic Opportunity, and I can remember as a child
Okay.
going around and we gathered up all the little kids, and that was when they started Head Start, and we went around and got the older people, and that's when they started the Area Agency on Aging. And I think it's my history and just being a small riding with my mother every summer in the car, doing all those things, and I saw the possibilities, and I saw how Head Start changed kids' lives, and I saw that if you can change a child's life, you can make things better for people.
Mm-hmm.
mhm.
That's true. That's true.
And to all of our listeners, you've heard this very impressive woman. You can see that the National Council of Negro Women, especially I can speak for the Rankin, Mon Valley, Pittsburgh unit, we have some great people who are trying to make a difference. And we want you to join us. You can take out a membership, men or women, and be part of us. So please check us out online or on our Facebook page, and you will see that we are trying to make a difference in our community, and we need your help. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, everyone, have a wonderful evening.
All
Okay.
right.
And thank you again, Dr. McAfee.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much. Bye bye.